kind of the formalities. We're really the last one to go. I know Mr. Jordan had a district meeting. I know Mr. Levitt had a TCTC meeting last night, and I know Mr. Kinsman had a meeting earlier this week. So we're kind of bringing up the rear, but it's time for us to try to get out there and let our parents know and students know what's going to go on. So as I said, I'm going to go through a bunch of bulleted points here. Then we'll give some other people a chance to talk a little bit about where they fit in and what you should know from their particular position. And then we'll get into the question and answers if that's okay with everybody. So I'm going to dive right in. First thing I think I want our parents to know and students is we've got a plan in place. When I say we, I'm talking about the district. It's been a lot of work, a lot of meetings, a lot of time. And it's not just a local developed plan. There's CDC, DHHS, DOE. There's a lot of groups behind helping schools like ours come up with these plans. That plan is available on the district website. So if you go, you can type in Dexter Regional High School or MSAD 46. It'll take you to the same place. And our opening of school or return to school is all there. And that's for the students. That's for the staff. So that's really the best place to go for information. Any questions that we don't answer tonight, I would strongly recommend that you go to the website to look things up. So that being the case, what I'm going to talk about is very specific to Dexter Regional High School, not necessarily district level things, although there is some consistency. I've sent out letters. You should have, as a parent, received letters by now. There should have been a follow-up. I won't call that one a letter, but it was really a set of bulleted points of things your son or daughter may want to know. And those are the same things we're going to talk about now. But the start of school this year, you should know we're starting and opening at 8:30. The first day of school is freshman only on the 2nd. But we historically have always opened up at 8 o'clock. We've got a busing issue, obviously, because the numbers are limited and we're going to have to do multiple bus runs to various places throughout our district. So Mr. Jordan wisely thought we should adjust, take advantage. The research shows that high school kids prefer, and I know when I was a teenager, I like to sleep in late. So we're going to let them come in at 8:30 and start school at 8:30. We're asking as best we can for parents that are dropping off kids and buses and all those above to try to arrive at 7:45 or later. Part of that is my staff does not need to be here. They're contractually not obligated to be here until 7:45. Obviously, Mr. Pilot and I and others are in the building as early as 7 o'clock, but supervision is an issue if you're here earlier than 7:45. So again, school will be starting at 8:30 a.m. and that is new this year. We're going to be following the traditional red and white schedule. Your kids should be familiar with that, with the exception of the freshmen, the incoming freshmen, and new students. Our upperclassmen know exactly what that is. The biggest reason for that is so TCTC, which is on our campus and we share with 6 area schools, to keep them in a consistent basis. TCTC kids will be going to school. Anytime that comes up in their rotation, they will go and they go in person. They've got bigger classrooms. They can socially distance and follow the guidelines and have everybody there. So we thought it was important to stay on the red and white schedule. And also we're hoping there might be an opportunity to roll out of that at some point, and we're already in a normal schedule. So I already hit bus runs a little bit. Transportation, honestly, Shelly's working hard with her staff. It's going to take 2 or 3 weeks before we really know how it's going to work and what time buses are coming and pickups are happening. But again, they're going to follow the guidelines with the masks, the seats. I think last time I heard it was only 28 kids is the max, depending on the size of the bus. So we do have to have multiple bus runs. I know the district has purchased new buses, so we have more buses. Like every district across the state, we're trying to get more drivers so we can facilitate more runs. But again, that goes hands in hand with the 8:30 start. So, and again, we'll answer any questions about that when we circle back later. But the mask, again, seems to be the biggest issue. We've tried to highlight that in everything we put on the website and our mailings. The short and sweet of it is your student is expected to wear a mask at all times while in the building. The only exception would be a medical exception. And I don't know, I might even ask if Angie wants to jump in, because parents want to ask questions about, can my son or daughter wear a shield? And what I've heard is no, well, they can wear a shield, but they still have to wear a mask if they're going to wear the shield. So there's very few exceptions, and it has to be a medical provider. So a social worker, counselor type thing is not going to be acceptable to get your kid out of wearing a mask. So Angie, I don't know if you want to talk about that briefly.
Sure. Yes, that if your student cannot wear a mask, they need to have a note from their medical provider, and then they will be required to wear the face shield. And along with that, they have to maintain absolute 6 feet distancing at all times with that when they have just the shield on. If they're unable to wear a shield or a face mask, then we maybe need to consider that that student would work best remotely.
Yep. And you'll see, again, I'm not going to share, I don't know if this shows up, but there's students are going to encounter a lot of things on the walls as they enter the school. You as a parent, if you were dropping off a kid, you would see a lot of signage about what they need to do. And the most important thing is the masks that they're going to encounter. So, and again, we'll answer any and all questions about masks later on. Or again, I'll encourage you, use the chat function if you have a specific question about masks. We are attempting to keep all of our classes under 10 students. That's kind of the number. I think we're doing pretty well looking. We're really not going to know until the actual, because we still got some families and students that are choosing remote, and that moves the number. You obviously have some families that move in and families that move out at the last second as we open school. But we feel pretty strongly that we've got it, that the most you would have in any classroom is 10 students, and we can safely socially distance in all our classrooms. They are going to have to wear masks. They are going to have to socially distance. So those are you hear those all the time anyway. I don't think that's a new expectation. There is probably the one exception. Our band class is rather large. It's knocking on 40 kids, but he's got the largest room in the building. Mr. Noakes thinks he can socially distance those 18 or 19 kids, again, depending on who's remote, who's not. And then maybe our dance classes get large, but Miss Veazey will be, for the most part, taking those kids outside when the weather cooperates. So you should know the drinking fountains will all be shut off this year. So you're not going to be able to use those. We strongly encourage bring your own water bottle from home. I think kids are still going to be able to. We only have one of these at school, but I think kids can still use the water bottle filler station, but they will not be allowed to use any of the drinking fountains. So it's important that you have your son or daughter come with their own water, Gatorade, whatever it is they want to bring to drink. So obviously, we're going to be encouraging hand washing. There's going to be a lot of signage around that, as well as the masks. We will have a lot of hand sanitizer all throughout the school. We've always had that anyway, but you're going to see even more than you normally would see around school as we get started. I want to talk about the morning arrival routine because that's going to look a little different. My staff has been here the last 3 days, had to go through that a little bit. There will be, I hate to call it a screening, but there's a temperature check. It looks like a little laptop or an iPad computer on a stand that kids basically walk up to. It will tell them if they don't have a mask on, it'll tell you very politely, please put your mask on, and it'll read their temperature. If it's done right and it's working right, it takes less than 2 seconds per individual. Still working out the bugs, but I feel pretty confident. So that's our screening method. We ask that you, the parent at home, are going through kind of a self-screening process. There's a lot of protocols and check sheets that you can have. And again, I should have introduced you, Angie, my fault. Our school nurse is here with us, Angie Bucher, maybe to talk very quickly about what that home screening should look like before the child leaves for school in the morning.
Sure. The screening tool can be found on our webpage. I would recommend, maybe taking a picture of it so you have it right on your phone, easy to access. You should check your child's temperature every morning before they come to make sure that they don't have a fever and that they are feeling well, essentially. If they have symptoms of, practically any sort, they're probably going to get sent home. So it's important, if your child isn't feeling well, just keep them home for the day. And on that same note, think about your pickup plan. If your child isn't feeling, or your child is feeling well in the morning, they arrive at school, and at lunchtime, they start to not feel well. What are your resources to have that child picked up?
Thank you, Angie. And if a kid happens to come through, I think we've got the device set. Anything that's over 100, I heard 100.4, maybe something like that.
100.4.
Yeah, anything that reads over that, it's going to alert us. Angie will be there 99.9% of the time. If not, it'd be Miss Kite or myself or Mr. Pilot. That kid would go into what we would consider a call isolation, and we'd start a process. Obviously we're probably going to check temperature with other devices too to see what's going on. Who knows, the kid could have had a hot Dunkin' coffee that got their temperature up coming through. We want to verify that what we're seeing is real and it's a problem. If it is a problem, we will isolate that child and the parents will have to come and pick them up and take them home. So, but if the parents do a nice job with the self-screening at home and the student does a nice job, again, these are young adults, these are high school kids. And what Angie said, if they're not feeling well or any of those symptoms that we read about every day in the paper, just stay home. It's the safest thing to do. I think we'll be in good shape. After your temperature check, kids that want breakfast, it's going to be right there in the lobby. So Miss Mountain will be right there. Kids can just grab their, we're not going to be congregating or, meeting up in the cafeteria like they normally do in the morning. They'll grab their breakfast and honestly, they're going to go right to block 1. So if you've got algebra with Mr. Shorey or health with Miss Staples, you go to that class. And for those kids that are showing up at quarter of, it's going to be a 45-minute wait until the 8:30 start. But it's important that we have to do that because of the social distancing. We can't have kids gathering. And that goes into my next point. There are no lockers. You may or may not have heard that. I know it's been in my letters, but we're not using lockers this year. Kids are encouraged. You can use your backpacks, whatever you need to do to bring between classes. So we want no loitering. The social distancing has to be followed. As far as traffic flow, we are going to put some signage around school. But again, it's not an elementary or middle school, so we felt, kids can follow pretty simple instructions. The bottom line is kids are going to be expected to stay to the right of any hallway, and that goes in the stairwells too. If they just keep that simple rule in mind, as I'm walking down the hall, the wall needs to be to my right side. And that's what they're using in a lot of business and industry and secondary schools. So we're going to use that here. So there'll be some signage reminding kids to stay to the right and to stay 6 feet apart. And hopefully everybody will follow that. When they get their schedules or when we get going, they'll notice that there's no breaks really between the classes. They have 2 minutes of travel time. That was intentional, again, because we don't want them loitering. We don't want them seeking out their boyfriends and girlfriends and peer groups, and they need to get to the next class. They may honestly have to wait a little bit while the teacher is cleaning the desk from the previous cohort or group of kids that were in there. But the point is the kids need to move and get to their next location. And they're not hanging around in groups. So we've done everything we can to eliminate lines and groups of kids, whether it's lockers and lunches and things like that. So speaking of lunch, we started with a plan that we were going to do it in the classrooms. That seemed to be the guidance we were hearing. That's the wishes. We did have a plan. It probably could have worked, but it honestly works better for us. The size of our cohort where we're splitting the school and the numbers of kids we're dealing with, and this works way better for our lunch people. We are going to do it in the cafeteria. We are still going to have 2 lunches. Mr. Pilot worked diligently today to get it set up. I think we can only have 50 at any gathering. Again, the guidelines that we can't have any more than 50 people in one room. But so there's 50 individual tables set up out there, all 6 feet apart. So the kids will go, when they have lunch, go straight to lunch, go right to their table and sit down. So if you're bringing food from home, and we strongly encourage that, bring your own food. Obviously, there's no sharing. Just go sit down at a table and have your lunch. While that group is eating, the other group will be in academic support. And we also scheduled 10-minute time in between the 2 lunches so we can clean all those tables. But the lunch ladies or individuals will be bringing the food. So those that are having hot lunch or lunch served here at school will be brought to them at the table. So there's, again, no lineups, no a la carte, nothing like that, no salad bars. It's mostly going to be in a bag. Hopefully some hot dishes as we get going, but for the most part, it's going to be cold bag lunches to start. And as far as there'll be no lining up to get rid of that, we'll put trash cans around the cafeteria again and kind of in selected areas so the kids, again, don't gather. We're doing everything we can to avoid the lines. So that's what the lunch looks like. They'll have 25 minutes. I know they're starting a new program. If parents want to pay online, that's available to them now. Again, so we're not exchanging money. I think they will still take your money, but they would rather that you do it online and do it that way. And so that's lunch. As far as dismissals, we're going to be staggering a little bit. So they're just honestly going to have to follow Miss Sinclair or Miss Kite, whoever's doing the dismissals that day, just follow the instructions. And there's going to be a little learning curve. You may know that Ridgeview is getting out at 2 o'clock. And I know there's talk about one bus taking all the Exeter kids. So they may pick up all the extra kids at Ridgeview at 2 o'clock and actually show up here at like 20 past 2. So we may have to dismiss our Exeter kids for that bus. There's a lot of work and a lot of coordination that has to go into it, but we're not just going to dismiss school, ring a bell, and all the kids flood down the hallway like you traditionally see. It'll somewhat be the second floor, first floor, or it'll be by bus runs, and that's probably the more likely what you will see is by bus run. Kids that are walking, kids that are getting picked up by the parents are going to be asked, they need to get out immediately. And that's one of the hard things for me to see, because honestly at our school, kids treated as a second home, and in the past they could hang out in the cafeteria, hang out with their friends, they're online, they're doing schoolwork, they're seeing teachers, there's a lot of things going on, and none of that really can take place now. The kids need to leave the building and get out of here as fast as they can. So that's dismissal. The hybrid schedule, again, we've tried to communicate that through our letters and through some of my sheets, but the bottom line, we've got 2 cohorts. There's an A to J cohort and there's a K to Z cohort. The A to J group of kids, and that's based on your last name, will be coming in person in school on Monday and Tuesday of every week. And then they're going to be remote on Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. The K to Z cohort will be in seats and in person on Thursday, Friday, and they're home doing remote on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday. We do have some students, I think it was about 20, my last count, that are choosing remote only, which means they'll be home every day doing their classes. Wednesdays is remote for everybody. They're going to do a deep clean of the building. The only ones in the building that day are my staff, because they are still teaching. And I want to emphasize, probably stop and make the point about this online and remote learning. And it's very different than what we did last spring when we got shut down in March and we just kind of went home. And we were kind of, building that airplane as we were flying it, is the analogy that everybody wants to use. But this looks very different than that, where I know we had kids working jobs and then they were just simply checking in later at night and doing the work. And the bottom line, the message we need to get out early and often, and the kids are going to learn very quickly, is we're taking attendance every day. And that doesn't matter if they're home remote. If you've got an 8 o'clock health class with Miss Staples, she sent a Zoom invite, and those 5 or 6 kids that are home need to be in that Zoom up on her TV in the classroom, and she's taking attendance. And if they're not there, we're going to treat it as you're absent, just like if you were missing a day of school. That's our intent. Some of it's the marching orders from the state. We've been instructed we have to take attendance. So that's a very, very different expectation. You're not going to be able to just, I'll pull up Miss Staples' health class and look at that video at 11 o'clock tonight when I get home from work. You need to be at that class, and that's all day, every day, any class that you have. I will emphasize, you do not have to be there for study halls. People keep asking me that question. If it's your remote day, if you're that K to Z group and you're home on Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, and you've got study hall, white 3, you do not need to check into your study halls. So that'll take some communication and learning curve for the staff and students, but we'll work through that. We are starting senior privileges right from the get-go. I got 36 seniors that do not need to be here when they have study hall, so they're excited about that. Another big part of our remote learning this year, we've put a Rally system in every classroom. Very powerful system with recording, audio ability, video ability that should really enhance what the student sees. Obviously, it'll be working with the Zoom system that the kids will have to use. Every kid's got an iPad. I'll emphasize how important it is if your son or daughter, my upperclassman that took the iPad home, if that needs to be worked on between now and the opening of school, Mr. Shaw will take it and get it fixed, because that's the device we've given and that's the device you have to do this remote learning with. Logan, I see you there. Again, our technology director, Mr. Shaw, is there if he wants to talk about that a little bit.
Yep, just email me, lshaw@aos94.org. Let me know if you have a broken iPad or a lost charger. That way I can put it in my record so I'm ready for them when they come in. We got a bunch of stuff in to help replace things for the COVID. So as long as you guys let me know ahead of time, I'll try to make sure we have stuff in place for your kid.
Thanks, Logan. And I'll also add, if we have some families that are encountering what I'd call connectivity issues, they're struggling and need a hotspot, we have a limited supply, and I have to emphasize that, a limited supply. We can supply that, my tech people, either one of the Shaws will work with that family to verify, because we can't just hand those out to any family that thinks they want free internet. But we do have some devices. We will help families that need it, but they need to get in touch with Mr. Shaw or come to the school and see us so we can give you that device and get it set up and connected.
And can I add, Steve?
You
The
absolutely.
hotspot is just for your son or daughter's device. It isn't something that everyone in the house can use. So I will set it up so it only connects to their device. It's not a very strong hotspot, but it will work for what it needs to do.
Thanks, Logan. A few other things. The makerspace that the kids have become used to. We will be opening it eventually, but the first 2, 3, even 4 weeks of school, the gentleman that we've hired to run that, it honestly is going to be helping Logan with all the technology around the school, because we know this is all new to the teachers, and honestly, just getting all those kids connected using Zoom, using the Rally systems is going to be a challenge and a struggle. So we needed some bodies to help with that. But eventually we will open the makerspace once we've settled down and we're in a routine. The library will be open. People are asking about that. We've hired a new librarian, but again, limited because of the social distancing. I think we can get 7, maybe max 8 kids in there at their own individual tables. But again, that's study hall that kids can access. We're very excited. On the first floor of the high school, we're going to have 5 brand new individual unisex bathrooms. They're working round the clock. Honestly, we'll probably be working through the weekend, but that was an investment by the school board. We've been looking for that for years. So we're excited, though, to have 5 brand new bathrooms. Anybody that's ever been to school here or worked here knows the quality of our bathrooms here, and it's not good. So we're excited to get those new bathrooms here. Just general movements around the building. Just again, you won't see Mr. Pilot and I run around yelling at kids, but we will be reminding kids 6 feet apart. The distancing is important. I know that's going to be difficult for boyfriend, girlfriend situations, but they just got to be respectful of what we need to do. I can't have outside people coming in and seeing that we're allowing, kids to not socially distance. So it's important to us. It's important to your son or daughter's safety that they follow those guidelines. So we will be enforcing those, and they just need to know that. Parents and visitors, I'm getting questions. Parents, can visitors from outside come in? Can they come in and drop off? Parents love to come in and drop off Dunkin' Donuts to their kids. And the short answer, Mr. Jordan's telling us right now, is no. It would have to be a real emergency, or we would have had to call you in. We're not allowing outside people in the building at this time. And part of that is it goes back to the contact tracing that we have to do, knowing the cohorts, knowing who's in the building, what areas to clean, and et cetera. So I apologize for that. I know some of you have been comfortable over the years coming in, seeing your kids dropping things off, but the short answer this year, we're not going to be allowing them in. On the rare occasion that they do need to come in, if there's a meeting that absolutely has to happen, or perhaps you're even coming to get your kid because Angie's, you got a temperature and Angie's pulled your kid aside for isolation, you yourself will have to go through that procedure and get temperature checked and such. So there is a procedure for any outside visitors. And the last couple things I'm going to hit, advisory is still happening. People are asking, that is going to be by Zoom Wednesday morning. So kids that have been here, they know we always do advisory Wednesday morning, first thing, still 8 o'clock. It's just going to be by Zoom until we're back in person with everybody. That's when advisory is going to happen. So again, the kid will have to look for the invite from your advisor, and that'll take place not next Wednesday because that's a freshman only day, but the following Wednesday, we will have an advisory group by Zoom. And just before this meeting, we found out the MPA has put their stamp of approval on fall sports going forward. So that's all sports. There are still some layers, obviously, that, the superintendents can get involved and shut that down. The governor always has the authority to shut it down. So it's not a completely done deal, but for the most part, they are the governing body that oversees interscholastic sports. So it looks like our coaches and athletes that want to. We're very aware that some families may feel that's not safe. They might be, disappointed that the MPA's made that decision, and that's okay. We already know some schools completely, like Camden Hills, are just not going to do sports. So there are some local communities that may not play sports. Based on our school board last night, they were going to endorse whatever the MPA approved today. So it looks like as of today, we will be having fall sports. Pay attention to the papers. It's going to be all over the place. There's little minor changes in all the fall sports, little guidelines about masks and what they can and can't do. and I'd be lying to you if I didn't say football is still a concern. I would say football is on what I'd call a 3-week trial basis to see how it goes. And then they will revisit. So that's kind of the fall sports. Mr. Pelot, is there anything you wanted to say about fall sports or things the parents may need to know about their kid coming to fall sports?
No, I think the big thing is next week when the freshmen come in, that they communicate with us as far as what sports they would like to play, and we can get them in touch with the right coach.
Yep. And fall sports officially kick off September 8th. Most of them are already meeting of some sort with conditioning programs. So I'd strongly encourage if you've got a kid that wants to play any of our fall sports, and that's golf, cross country, field hockey, boys and girls soccer, and football, either reach directly out to those coaches or kids or talk to Mr. Pelot. But it'd be wise for those kids, now that we know it's probably going to happen, they want to get out there and start getting some conditioning moving forward. And that includes cheering. I always forget cheering. That's my fault. But we will have fall cheering too. But the MPA didn't give guidelines on cheering, which was an odd stance by them. Last thing, and then we'll turn it over to questions. Just know that we do have a lot of disinfectant in the school. The state has sent to every school across the state hand sanitizers. The wipes haven't got here yet, so we're kind of still waiting on those. There's dividers that we're putting in classrooms, partitions. We're doing a lot to try to minimize contact between kids and staff. I think you'd find pretty similar no matter what school you went into. But again, it all goes back to really, really trying to be safe as best we can. Can we promise you 100%? Absolutely not. But we feel like the plan we've got in place and the things we're doing really can mitigate the chances of a spread of COVID. So I'll kind of end before I turn it over, just say, be flexible with us. Things are going to change. We get new guidelines every day. So the plans and things I talked about tonight honestly could change tomorrow. So be patient, be flexible. We're trying to tell our staff, keep smiling. There's a lot of anxiety from administrators and teachers. We know that. And I'm sure the kids, it's going to be, just not knowing what to expect. But I'm excited personally. It's been, close to 6 months since we've had kids in this building. So I'm just ecstatic that we're getting close and we're actually going to have kids walk in the halls and some education taking place. So that being the case, let's just open it up to questions, and people can either through the chat,
Yep.
or if you're on the screen and want to just fire away, just kind of get our attention by waving or speaking up. Want to make sure we answer all questions.
So there are a few questions from the chat. We'll just pull up first. We'll just go back to one that you just actually talked about in terms of athletics and games. Can you talk about spectators at games? Will those be allowed at this point? What do you think?
The MPA, now that portion of the approval is passed, honestly, now they've got to dig into the spectator side of it. There will be guidance. There's already guidance from the governor. It's very clear we can only have 100 at any outdoor function right now. So unless that number shifts or lifts, we're going to be restricted to 100 people, and that includes your coaches, players. We being Mr. Pelot, myself, Mr. Jordan, have started some discussions about what spectators would look like at various sporting events if we have it here. Heard some great ideas at the board last night that probably will get incorporated. I think our intent would be to have spectators. Obviously, the alternative would be to just say no spectators, and I'm not sure that's a great solution. So I think the short answer, Matt, is we're going to work on a plan. We don't have a plan right now because we just got the approval to actually play. But there will be guidelines and there will be a plan to deal with spectators at sports. So.
Another couple questions that came to me, both either everyone in the chat or some folks also messaged me privately. You could just click on my name and send me a private message if you don't want it to go out to everyone. Will all teachers this year be using Zoom?
As far as I know, that is the expectation. There might be in the special ed department a few exceptions, but generally speaking, every teacher is using Zoom. Every class, there are kids that are home and remote that are checking in using Zoom. So yeah, and we've invested in that. The teachers all have their Zoom accounts. And again, I talked about the Rally systems that we put in all the classrooms. So yeah, kids and teachers will be using the Zoom system or the Zoom program.
What about things like bathroom breaks? This was a question because it came up with like 2 minutes transition between class, and there was a question about how would that all work?
Yeah. And again, we haven't even sat down with the staff here. It's on the staff. We're going to encourage kids. We prefer that they try to take care of that during the class, one at a time, stay to the right, stagger it out. So again, so we don't have the line at the bathroom. We don't want to see that during the, it's really, and again, part of that's going to be teaching the kids and teaching the staff to take care of that during, over the course of the class. Let your kids use the bathroom and send them one at a time. We really need to spread that out over the course of periods.
So will there be a microwave for students to be able to use to warm their food up?
I haven't talked to my kitchen people about that. Historically, there are at least 2 microwaves out there. If we feel there's a need for more, we can certainly look into purchasing or moving some of the, we've got one in the office. I know Mr. Pilot has one in the Tiger store. We could certainly move. If that's a need that we quickly identify, we'll take care of it. We'll get more microwaves. We really want to encourage kids and families, send their kids with their own lunch. It's just a better alternative this year. And then you're just not dealing with, food and stuff that's been handled by other people.
Okay. A couple of questions, and we'll do some questions about things like time in general.
Mm-hmm.
So can you clarify the start and end time at the school today? Question about how is TCTC going to work on Wednesdays?
Yep.
And then another start time question on Wednesdays for advisory. If a kid shows up to the Zoom after 8 a.m., is that kid considered late?
I'll start with that one and work my way backwards.
Sure.
Obviously teachers are going to, I keep using the terms flexible, patient. It applies there too. There's going to be a learning curve with these kids. And we know on Wednesdays they're home, they're waking up and attending the Zoom there. So yeah, we asked for some leniency. Obviously I don't want a kid rolling in there at 20 past 8 and go, I'm here. That's not going to work for many weeks. That's a problem. We'll treat it as a tardy or an absence like we normally do. TCTC, they just need to know if you're a TCTC student, they're going and they're in person, and that includes the rotation on a Wednesday. TCTC is not remote on Wednesdays. They're in person. So if the red day or white day, whatever you're on, comes up on a Wednesday, you go to TCTC. There are buses running because our K-5 population is all day, every day. So the buses are running, kids can get there. I know we've got an outlier problem with a Harmony student that we're working on, and we'll probably discover a few more of those problems, but the TCTC should take care of itself. Those kids are there all the time whenever their day comes up. As far as the day itself, we moved to the 8:30 start. The good news, we really didn't lose any academic time. We still had the 5 approximately 60-minute classes. We lost the 10 to 15-minute break in the morning. We shortened what was usually a 5-minute transition time. So squeezing minutes here and there and lunch. We honestly didn't lose any academic time, which was important to me. So we're still getting out at 2:30ish, 2:35, depending on the buses and the bus runs. Like I said, it'll be a staggered dismissal. We're starting at 8:30, but other than that, it's your normal run of 5 classes right through the day, and that includes a lunch and an academic support block that's in the middle of that. So that's
My question.
Steve,
yes.
I just wanted to mention that you might want to check on the microwaves. I know at elementary level, they're not allowing any reheating of food that comes in from outside.
Yeah. No, thank you, Denise. Again, that was one of those, I honestly have not looked into the guidelines or what they're suggesting or saying, but that would make sense.
I think the elementary is because they can't have the microwaves in the classrooms and they have to eat in the classrooms. So they won't put a microwave in each classroom. Yeah. They're not using the cafeteria like you guys are.
Yeah. I'll need to talk to Mr. Jordan and then talk to our lunch people, but I'll get an answer to that.
And my question is, Steve,
so if you have questions, though, we've got just about every corner of our school covered, from the athletics and Mr. Pilot, whether it's special ed questions, regular ed questions. I've got a little bit of everybody here. So
one thing, Steve, I don't know if you mentioned, I might have missed it, but that the locker rooms will be off limits.
Yeah. No, thank you. And please, all of you jump in if you've got things that I left out. Our intent right now is locker rooms, as Ms. Staples just pointed out, will not be available to kids throughout the day. Ms. Veazey's phys ed class, those kids will just come dressed in whatever it is. Hopefully they understand they've got dance class or phys ed, and they might be going out and they'll dress appropriately, but access to the locker rooms will not happen. Part of that, we're using some of it for isolation. If we have some COVID breakouts or COVID symptoms we got to deal with, part of it is just, we can't control that entity in there with kids gathering and what's going on. We can't, I don't want to say we don't trust them, but we all know what goes on in locker rooms, and it's just not a great situation or environment. So it's better to just shut it down and not use it. And right now that includes the sports. Mr. Pilot's got some work to do with the football team and to figure out their situation, but our intent is no locker rooms even for the sports. Kids will have to go straight to their fields, meet their coaches, and conduct their business.
Steve, another question from the chat. How early can a student go into the school in the morning?
The answer I have to give is 7:45, but I also understand people have jobs and situations. Like I said, I'm here around 7. I have 2 secretaries, sometimes 3 secretaries here as early as 7 in the morning. Mr. Pilot's not far behind us. If there's kids here, it's just, like I said, my staff does not show up till 7:45. I'm never going to turn away a kid and tell them they got to sit outside, and, you know, we'll figure it out. I may have to cut a deal with one of my teachers that come in, like Mr. Webb, that comes in early, see if he'll, you know, observe those kids until the rest of my staff get here. But I feel confident we can handle it. So the answer is 7:45, Matt. But if somebody absolutely needs to drop kids off early because of their work situation, we'll take care of it.
There's nothing else in the chat for now.
Okay. Well, we'll give it a pause a little bit, just if there's anybody else has questions, because I certainly don't want to cut it off. But also if we've reached a point where we've exhausted or answered questions, again, I'll emphasize people need to go to the website, use that. That's your best place to get information. We've tried to communicate, whether it's these Zoom meetings, to send letters. We're going to meet with those kids and really try to, in those first days, remember that first day is freshmen only. We get them for the whole day. And then all day Thursday is just the A to J cohort is coming in. So that's the third. And then the fourth is just the K to Z cohort. I probably should have elaborated a little more on that. It was in one of my letters. We probably will have to do a phone blast to make sure the kids understand that. But we really wanted a separate day so we can just hammer home all of these things we talked about tonight, how they're going to behave and what's new in the building. So those things will be hit very hard on September 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. And then September 8th is the real deal. That's when we start. The red and white rotation starts. I don't want to call it normal because nothing that we're doing right now is considered normal, but that'll be our first real day with full remote and everything happening. So
Wanted to let them know too, Steve, that the red-white schedule is on the website on our Dexter High School page. So if they want to look at it early, they can look at it there.
Thank you, Ms. Sinclair. Anybody else?
Share a few things.
Absolutely.
Things will be different in the health office this year. We'll be giving medications to only those that are like absolutely necessary. Those would typically be middle of the day doses. We won't be able to do AM or late afternoon doses as we have in the past. Also, since we're not allowing visitors into the building, it would be great if your child does need medication to give me a call, send me an email. We can set up an appointment. I can meet you outside and we can take care of that business that needs to be done. Other things that I've offered in the past that I'm not going to be able to offer this year, I won't have snacks available. You know, if your kids can remember to bring their food with them. I do believe that they're still offering the second chance breakfast in the morning. I talked to Gail about that. And there won't be any sharing, no food share table this year that a lot of the kids appreciated last year. I also won't have clothing available. If there's an absolute emergency, you know, your child gets a bloody nose, gets some blood on them, I'll be able to take care of that. But if your student arrives underdressed or overdressed or inappropriately, we might not be able to handle that depending on what's going on that day. Regarding the masks, I know there's been lots of questions at Ridgeview about the masking. The CDC recommends anything that's multiple layers. I know a lot of the kids prefer the gator type. I know my son does. If it's multiple, if it's a thick material, of course they're allowed. But the real thin ones, I wouldn't recommend because they might not give the appropriate protection. The CDC is also advising against the masks with the exhalation valves because those don't contain the particles appropriately. And I would recommend that the students bring at least 2 masks with them and change at maybe lunchtime, midway through the day. The masks have a tendency to get damp, and that may lead to skin irritations around the mouth. And we don't want any of that happening.
And the school does, again, the state sent a supply to every school. We have masks for kids, but most kids are going to prefer their own, for their own comfort purposes to bring something from home. But just know we do have masks. So if a kid shows up at our door with no mask, they're going to get one. They're going to be required to wear it. And I did want to say, my fault earlier, Ms. Toll couldn't be here tonight, but she wanted to make sure the parents and students knew that their schedules are available. It's in Power School. And if they have questions about those, they either call her, email her, set up a Zoom with her. She's more than willing to discuss workout changes, but the schedules are there. They're in Power School. So you can go and access those. And Ms. Weber, is there anything you want to add or say?
No, I'll be here available for kids, for the students. And if any parents need to get in touch with me, you're certainly welcome to email or call me. I can do a Zoom as well. So I know this will be, it's going to be a little bit tough. Get started, the start of the year, and here to help and support in any way that I can. So reach out if you have any questions, about your students' well-being or any mental health. I'll certainly help in any way that I can.
I think we're probably nearing the end. Again, I just want to emphasize, we've got a plan in place. We know it's not a perfect plan. We emphasize safety. We tried to listen to every set of guidelines we got, whether it's CDC, DOE, et cetera. I mean, we got them all. So, and it's been a lot of work over the summer by those people behind those plans. So I guess we'll put it into practice starting next week, and we'll see how it goes, and we'll adjust.
A couple more questions showed up in the
Okay.
What's the first day for TCTC students?
They're going to be open even on the 2nd. So if they're an upperclassman and that's their rotation, they could certainly go that day, and I would encourage them to go that day. For us, it's a freshman only day. And then again, we're into those cohort rotations where if we want that A to J kid to be with us on Thursday and then the K to Z kid on Friday, so we can go through all of our COVID related things. But we're doing rotations that day. So even they will have a chance to visit TCTC in their program during those rotations. And Mr. Levitt's aware of that. So.
And TCTC, it's their white day on the 2nd. So their first day for white day tech students is the 2nd. First day for red day tech students would be the 3rd.
Any and all of us that you see here on the screen are available, and you can reach out by email. It's all on the website. You can find us there or call. I'd like to tell you to come in and meet with us in person, but I can't tell you that. So again, if there's other questions, I don't want to shut it off. So if there's other questions.
There was another question about homecoming.
Yeah. Well,
can I just talk about TCTC, the early childhood program, because that's a little different. Because we're located at Nokomis, and Nokomis doesn't start until September 8th. Okay. I will be reaching out to my students, and we'll be meeting up remotely on Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, if it's their rotation. Okay. So those early childhood kids will not be going to Nokomis for TCTC that first week.
Okay. Thank you, Allison.
Mm-hmm.
And Ms. Tobin, somebody had a question about homecoming?
Yeah, wanted to know how all this stuff is going to affect homecoming.
I would honestly, people need to get their minds wrapped around things like homecoming and color games, and as we saw in the spring when we didn't have proms and graduation, we had it, but it was a very different experience. Any of those that have large groupings, gatherings of people are just gonna have to be put off until a later date. So I don't see a homecoming, a traditional homecoming like what we've experienced in the past taking place this fall. And that's unfortunate, but but we're getting something. We are in school, we're, a little bit, we are having sports. So I think we got to be happy with what we've got at this point. Other questions or comments, things we need to make sure get out there? All right, Matt, thank you for facilitating. All my staff that showed up tonight, thank you very much. The parents and I know I saw several students there too, so thank you. Again, I can't say how excited I am to see, students back in the building next week. Can't wait for it to happen. Other than that, enjoy your 3-day weekend because we get started. So good night, guys.
Thank you, Steve.